Hi guys, I'm going live once again. Today I am talking about pernicious abuse. It's a little known form of abuse. It's extremely insidious, and it has been done to me for since 2010, I would say, in varying degrees, and on an extreme level from 2015 on. It's been nonstop. So I'm going to go over, I found a really good article, and it's by Marc Hubs, and it's called Psychological Murder, Death by Covert Abuse. And normally when this kind of abuse happens to targeted individuals too, a lot on a mass scale, within whole communities. I know in my case, they brought the targeting in because I've kind of lived my usefulness for the MK Ultra programs. So yeah, so now it's time to make me look crazy to everybody, and any way they can, to get a baby and start the process over. Yay. But this article is absolutely amazing. Marc Hubs is a writer and researcher on the science, mind, and conspiracy, and he is the author of Know Your Enemy, Reflections on Narcissistic Personality Disorder. And I will link the article below the video. So today we're going to talk about pernicious abuse. And it goes unrecognized, but it exists. It exists on an extremely covert level. It happens behind the scenes without anyone even being aware of what the problem really is. No evidence of it is left behind, and no one has ever been convicted of it, yet in reality, what I will term pernicious abuse is something that can and does have a devastating effect, not only on the victim, but also within society. Pernicious abuse can lead a person into carrying out acts such as covert psychological murder, or perhaps even covert psychological manslaughter, something which is very real, insidious in nature, but unfortunately unrecognized and virtually unquestioned. Psychological murder can take many forms, but the type I'm referring to is of a covertly narcissistic and or sociopathic nature. It may be too difficult for some people to be able to comprehend, but it does happen, and I've seen it happen. Narcissistic, sociopathic, narcopathic abuse takes place when a narcissist or a sociopath attempts to convince someone who has discovered their unbelievably shallow secrets gradually over time that they are crazy, and proceeds to manipulate them into keeping quiet or ultimately face their wrath. They use techniques such as crazy making, character assassination, and gaslighting in order to get their victim to question their own sanity. Oh yes, all day, every day since 2015. I'm the craziest woman alive. Okay, they generally do so by ostracizing the victim while continuing to act out their part, expertly hiding their truly outrageous behavior, whilst successfully having everyone around them fooled. Everything is done to appease those around them, while their manipulative and controlling tactics take place behind the scenes, outside of people's awareness. The victim is forced to question their own sanity because they don't realize that they are the victim, because everything done to manipulate them is done outside their conscious awareness. The longer time goes on and the longer the victim tries to do something about it, the more severe the abuse becomes. The narcissist sociopath has already built an army of unwitting abusers who will help drive the victim crazy. I swear to God. Yes. All right. The long-term consequences of these actions can be devastating, soul-crushing, and reality-shattering path to be led down. Of course, there are many other types of abuse that can have just as damaging and severe long-term consequences. However, psychological forms of abuse such as gaslighting, mental rape, slander, defamation, and distortion campaigns of a person's reputation are done so covertly and expertly that they are rarely identified early enough. The abuser, when carrying out these covert tasks, is faceless and undercover. Narcopathic abuse. And narcopathic abuse, the victims of this type of abuse are commonly left with no resources. Yes, they can use to escape the situation. The abuser has stolen their finances, their identity, and has turned the victim's own family and friends against them. Due to the malicious web of lies and deceit that have been woven, the victim is trapped with no way out, or at least that's what they're made to believe. Although victims go through what can be described as being dragged through hell backwards, narcissistic and sociopathic abuse via heightened communication is so difficult to pick up on the human radar of perception that the victim is usually left scratching their head wondering, is it me? They have been made to believe that they are the problem. Such abusers are so shallow that they may cheat on their partner or significant others on days such as Valentine's Day, or while away at a funeral, or at times when the victim will least expect it. Very true. And a lot of times, if you come from like an MK Ultra or a cult background, you'll be set up to be married or in a long-term relationship with one of those narcopathic types, and they're basically told to abuse you and do things, like cheat all the time, and just to keep your mind busy on what they're doing, that you don't really pay attention to what's really going on around you. I know I woke up from that spell a long time ago, and it's very true. Okay, not only that, they will do it with the person the victim suspects the least, time and time again. In many cases, the victim may turn to drugs and alcohol as a means of escape. The stress that they are forced to endure can be so severe that if they don't find some kind of release in order to feel a sense of escape, they continue to build up with overwhelming tension, anxiety, emotional suffering, and may develop an overactive mind, which can literally drive them crazy. Post-traumatic stress disorder can also follow. That's not to say that the drugs will prevent it from happening or even slow the process down, because it won't. It'll only exacerbate the situation. And psychological murder. The abuser never quits abusing the victim, and the victim's self-esteem gets so worn down to the core that they go through a process of devaluation, dehumanization, and dissociation. The victim has been made to feel like they are nothing in this world. They have nothing, and now they have no meaning and nowhere to go, and nobody wants them anymore except for the narcissistic sociopathic abuser, who can now use the victim as their emotional or mental slave. The narcopath is now their god. Yes. They can also do that in mobbing too, where it's like a group of people, like a family, can do that, where they collectively abuse the victim, where they'll have, most of the members ignore everything that's going on and pretend that, they can't, they don't see anything unusual when it's like a really crazy situation. Yeah, so they can do that also. And then whoever the main coordinator in the group will, unless you bow down to their whims, the entire group dynamic will keep on trying to devalue and dehumanize a person. Like I said, in 2015, all of a sudden I became the family animal. Like, nobody treated me like a human being. It was like everything horrible that happened to me was just okay. Like, hey, the cops are, people are like messing with your house and, destroying your business and everything, but, whatever. Like, yeah, not good. The process is so subliminal that it happens so gradually that it could take place over the course of 10 to 20 to even 30 or more years. The victim knows that even if they did escape the situation, the abuser would probably continue to ruin the rest of their life or future relationships anyway. And in many cases, the abuser has left the partner has left the abuser, and the abuser continues to drive them crazy, gradually destroying their reputation, their life, and their soul, often referred to as soul murder. Eventually, the victim may be left feeling suicidal, but fear that others would see it as a selfish act. Additionally, they don't want others to be left picking up the pieces that they left behind because they don't feel real, true, genuine empathy. And for that reason, many victims believe that they have no choice but to continue suffering the abuse and may feel that the damage is already done. Some victims may ultimately decide to continue to pump as much alcohol and drugs into their system as they can, and that way they can use it not only as a form of escapism, but to slowly kill themselves so that they can reach the point that they don't have to suffer the abuse any longer. Others may not turn to substance abuse, but may end up suffering fatal medical issues as a result of the abuse alone, which may potentially lead to death as a result of pernicious abuse. Some may have also given up their hopes of escape and have just accepted things the way that they are, and they're basically reprogrammed and conditioned into codependence if they weren't codependent before. But unless they are an inverted narcissist, then the stress will eventually take its toll. Stress is well known to cause a myriad of health problems, both mental and physical, many of which can be fatal. Ultimately, the victim takes the knowledge of their covert psychological murder to the grave, which forever remains a secret inside the mind of the abuser. Okay, so yeah. No, this happens quite often. If you watch a lot of narcissism videos, Ollie Matthews covers a lot of this, and his videos are really good. He has an eye for the tactics, like a really good eye. That normally when there's a pernicious abuse, there's usually an underlying scheme for murder of the person, usually for life insurance policies. The pernicious abusers like to use like poisons and slow kill their victims with poisons over time while making them think that they're crazy. They will, if they're really insane, they'll sign you up for the as a domestic terrorist, and then use a law loophole to have you, hit with directed energy weapons, because the Department of Defense basically thinks it's okay to test, active denial weapons and things like that on domestic terrorists, whether you are one or not. Yeah. And then sell you into human trafficking because, you're just crazy. And when you wake up hurt and sick and bruises all over your body, it never happened. Yeah. Yeah. And when your computers are hacked nonstop, it never happened. No, nothing ever happened. What they're trying to do is just make it like you never happened, just. It's bizarre. It's really spooky and bizarre, but there are people like that out there. So, all right, well, I'm going to end this video here. Yes. So I'm going to link that article below. Thanks, guys. Bye.